Welcome to the House of Ravenscroft, the podcast where real estate and financial planning align to help you build lasting wealth and make smarter moves, combining market expertise, financial strategy, and real-world lessons to help you make confident, wealth-building decisions. So, let's dive into it. Welcome back to the House of Ravenscroft, where real estate meets financial strategy. I'm your host, Eric Ravenscroft, and today I'm going to go in a completely different direction from last week. In the previous episode last week, I broke down the advantages of new construction, why it could be a powerful move in today's market, and really looking at the wealth building opportunities that come with new construction. But this week, I'm going to talk about a strategy that's just as powerful, just as compelling, yet completely on the opposite end. Now, it's buying a home with income producing potential, living in one unit and renting out the others. Now, it's important to remember on this podcast, I'm not here to push one strategy over another. I'm merely here to guide and educate everyone on the full range of options so that you can make the decision that best aligns with your situation, your goals, your financial vision. Now, what may work for one buyer, what may even work for me, may not work for someone else. So that's exactly why I want to explore these different strategies, these different tools every single week so you can make that decision on what works best for you. And quick announcement before I dive in, next week I'm actually doing a full Q&A episode. So I've gotten quite a bit of questions actually. It's been about a month since I've had the podcast launched and received quite a few questions. So what I want to do, quick announcement, and just say if you have questions about house hacking, new construction, market shifts, tax tips, anything with regards to real estate, financial strategy, and you have something on your mind, send it my way. Send via email, social media, drop a comment on this podcast as well, and I will be sure to get as many of those questions answered next week. So let's jump into today's strategy. Now, this has actually been coming up more and more with in conversations with clients, especially here in Arizona, but also with other partner agents all across the country. And this hybrid approach combines home ownership and, like I said, with income producing potential. And there's a lot of reasons why this strategy is really popular today. And we're going to hit on some of them, but the big thing is affordability. Right now, I want to give you a recent example. I feel like examples really help kind of paint a clear picture. Actually just had clients close a few weeks ago, and they are doing this exact same strategy. So husband and wife, they had purchased a multi-unit property. And this was actually in a revitalized area of downtown Phoenix. So this property has a main front unit where they're going to live full time. It has a fully equipped back unit that can be rented as a short-term, mid-term, or long-term rental. Full kitchen. No, I want to paint the picture here. A fully equipped back unit. We're talking full kitchen, full bath, bedroom, living room, everything. It also had a detached structure that could function as a co-working space, an office, a studio. And I want to be clear, this is not some HGTV fantasy where they bought the home at $200,000 and they fixed it up. There's no fixer upper here. They didn't swing a sledgehammer. They didn't knock out any walls. They merely just saw the potential that most buyers overlooked because of the higher purchase price and jumped on it. And the things needed are pretty minor. Right? It's paint, it's cleaning, it's little touch-ups here and there. So let me walk you through the numbers on this one, because this is really where the strategy shines. And I have to commend the clients for this, being able to see this strategy in its entirety. So purchase price was around $850,000 right off the bat. That's going to scare a lot of people. A lot of people are going to look at that and say, it's too expensive. I can't afford that. The monthly mortgage came out to roughly about $5,000. Now they're renting out the back unit for $2,300 a month. Now that's on a long-term basis. Again, like I said, you have the flexibility to rent it out on a midterm basis, short-term basis, and I'll get into more kind of the examples and what those strategies look like. And then that detached office space, that can easily pull in another $1,000 a month. So right there, they're covering $3,300 of the $5,000 mortgage just by utilizing that space that they don't need to live in. You break that down, that's what, $1,700 a month effective net to live in a property valued at $850,000. Mind you, if I'm looking at this example, in one of the more vibrant downtown areas. So keep in mind, rental rates couldn't increase. They could decrease as well. We're actually starting to see that in some pockets of the Phoenix metro where rental rates have gone down a little bit. But if demand rises, or if you're switching to short or midterm models during peak season, that's going to increase, of course, your overall revenue. Now, I don't like using the term house hacking. I prefer kind of the cash flow home ownership approach. And then you have long-term wealth building baked in. Now, thanks to some of Arizona's new legislation that was passed last year with regards to accessory dwelling units, or what we commonly know as ADUs, homeowners across the entire state, they can now legally add ADUs, guest houses, casitas, on most single-family lots. So this opens up the opportunity to rental income without having to buy a full multifamily building. Okay, the strategy, look at it this way, whether you're buying a property that already has the units or you're building them yourself, regardless, this strategy is still very much underutilized. The law here in Arizona had really just passed a little bit over a year ago. So there's still a lot of builders that are coming up with packages to build these. There's still a lot of areas that really aren't sure of the ruling itself, and there's a lot of gray area. So this means competition is low, and of course the upside is high, especially when you factor in home prices that are much higher, rentals, apartments that are that much higher. If someone would much rather have a unit that has a kitchen, that has a driveway, that has access to, such as downtown, an outdoor area, than being jammed into, say, an apartment. Now, purchase price, right? I know everyone's probably thinking this. That is higher than a standard single-family home. But what I would look at is the net cost of living is way lower, especially when you factor in the rent from those additional units. So going back to the client example, the client's monthly expenses are largely offset by the rental income. And in some months, they can actually generate a surplus depending on the strategy that they implement. Now, whereas we just looked at a single family home, and then actually in their case, and actually other buyers that I'm working with right now, we're going back and forth. We're looking at single family. We're just focusing on price, and the net out of pocket expense would be much higher. And the strategy is not for everyone. In a little bit, I'm going to kind of go through the pros and cons so you know what to weigh if you are considering this strategy. So again, not a fan of house hacking term. I'm going to look at it as cash flow home ownership, again, with long-term wealth baked in. And this works beyond Phoenix, beyond Arizona. If you live near a hospital, university, tech corridor, there's a lot of ways this can work for you. Now, why this strategy works. Looking at it as live-in leverage, where Your home isn't just a place to live, but it's a tool for financial growth. So if I break it down, let's look at interest rates. They're still elevated. Affordability is low. Some people have to stretch their budget to get what they want. This strategy flips the script. Instead of stretching for the absolute biggest mortgage you can qualify for that big home that you probably don't need, but you want, this case, you're buying smarter. You're bringing in income from day one, and you're controlling your housing cost in a way that it really isn't talked about a lot. When you rent out part of your home, you're creating that buffer. That rent helps you qualify for more upfront. It reduces your risks, and it gives you room to breathe when, say, life throws you a curveball. You get a unexpected repair, or a job change, or come up with some health issues or family matters. And thanks to the flexibility of the various rental types, again, short, mid, or long term, you're never really locked in to one specific model or strategy. We're giving an example, right? Big events, like let's look at the Super Bowl. Let's look at the Final Four. Let's look at concerts. Let's look at conventions. Anything that's a big event, you can easily adjust the strategy according to what's happening in your market. Now, I know I'll go back to the example of the Super Bowl. When the Super Bowl was here a few years, I knew some clients, friends, other agents that actually rented out their personal home for those visiting here for the Super Bowl. Now, with this strategy, you don't have to rent out your personal home. You just rent out the back unit on a short-term basis that's fully furnished, and you're going to be able to generate a lot of revenue. It's kind of like the Swiss Army knife of real estate. 1 week, it's someone visiting, and then maybe for 3 months, you have a travel nurse in the back unit. Maybe someone's here for a sporting event of some kind. And then, we haven't even talked really about that studio. That's kind of a blank canvas. You can get really creative. You can just use it as an office, rent it out to someone as an office. You can have it be a storage space. You can have it be some type of creative studio. Say you want to turn it into a podcast booth, and then you're renting that out to individuals on a monthly basis or as need basis, or maybe a photo studio, and you're renting it out. There's a ton of flexibility for that space. Now, location. We're in downtown Phoenix. This is where I'm located, is in Phoenix. So I'm going to talk about Phoenix, but also the various areas outside of Phoenix, all across the country, where this strategy can make a lot of sense. Specifically for Phoenix, it's a great environment for this model because you have the walkability. You have a vibrant local dining. You have an art scene. You have proximity to major employers. You have hospitals like Banner and St. Joe's. And you're centrally located as well to everything within the valley. And downtown Phoenix, I'd say, if you haven't seen downtown Phoenix lately, it's completely evolved. What used to be, blocks of concrete for sale or for lease signs. Even I know when we had first moved here, you would go to downtown Phoenix to see a basketball game, go to a baseball game or a concert. You wouldn't get there early. You'd pretty much go right to the game and then get the heck out of there. Now it's completely changed. There's rooftop bars, art walks, tons of dining, entertainment options. So it's really revitalized a lot. Location, back to location here. So near a hospital, university, corporate offices, you're now targeting young professionals that want that lifestyle. You're targeting traveling nurses, remote workers, anyone too that doesn't want a cookie cutter suburb. And like I said, this strategy works across the country in the right markets. What you're looking for are cities and neighborhoods with strong job centers. Like I said, proximity to universities or hospitals. Maybe it's a growing tourism or remote work scene. And then, of course, culture and walkability. So I want to give you just a few examples on where this model where this strategy can really thrive. Let's look at Austin, Texas, right? You have a lot of music festivals. You have tech jobs. You have walkable neighborhoods as well. Look at Nashville, Tennessee. Obviously a huge tourism draw, but then you have a hub for healthcare. Looking at Salt Lake City, you have outdoor adventure. You have job growth in tech and healthcare. Plus, you have great access to, the need for short and midterm strategies. North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham, kind of what they consider the triangle. You have hospital networks. You have a lot of demand and growth from young professionals, traveling workers. Denver, Colorado. Colorado, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but Colorado is one of the states that has been promoting the whole ADU concept. But proximity to major employers, travel nurses, and a lot of times too, some people that I know that stay in Colorado short term, you kind of have these, digital nomads or, those who are just going from place to place. And if they work remotely, maybe they want to spend the summers in Denver. They want to be there for 3 months and then they're going to go to another market. Boise, Idaho. It's one of the fastest growing smaller cities, but that's drawing a lot of remote workers, people who are relocating, people who want to experience the seasons and, take advantage of everything outdoors. And then I'll use an example, San Diego, California. Yes, you do have a higher price point, but a strong market for multi-units, ADUs, university, naval base and such. So when demand is high and your space checks all the boxes, you gain pricing power and then, of course, consistent occupancy. So this model, it just lets you play it on your terms. You have a ton of flexibility. And I wouldn't sleep on smaller cities either. I've seen this in towns, I'm not joking here, where the main attraction is a Costco or, you have something very, very unique that draws a lot of people in. So don't underestimate the rental demand in places with stable jobs, low supply, or even just a little bit of tourism. And like I said, states such as Colorado, obviously California, Oregon, I know they're passing ADU-friendly laws, so that makes this strategy and this play even easier to duplicate elsewhere, not just in Phoenix. So looking at who the ideal tenants are for something like this, when we look at the setup, when we look at the short-term strategy, of course, it's going to be tourists, people who are coming here for events, whether it's concerts, sporting events, out-of-town visitors. When we look at the midterm strategy, that could be people relocating. They need a place to stay in a short-term basis. Not to confuse you with short-term, midterm, but short-term, think of it as like the revolving door. It's going to be people for week stays, maybe a few days. Midterm is going to be more that 1 month to 3-4 month, maybe even 6 month term. So that's where traveling nurses come in, remote workers, those type of people that are relocating that need that month to month stay. And then long term, of course, renters who want to secure a 12-month type of rental, students, professionals, a lot of different opportunity there. So you can pivot between these models as needed. And I'd say midterm rentals really are kind of underserved. There's a ton of opportunity with midterm rentals because everyone really just knows long-term and short-term, but there's a huge need, not only here in Arizona, not only here in Phoenix, but all across the country for midterm rentals. So they're great tenants for midterm. They provide a steady income. They're not there a lot of times, right? Like look at traveling nurses. They're going to work. They're coming back to sleep, to eat, and then repeat the cycle over and over again. And sometimes you can find situations, you can find partnerships with employers where the company will pay for that housing need, for that employee. So that strategy is what I would say, it's pure gold. You have great revenue potential, but also you have lower risk because that individual is not there. Sometimes it's one or two people. It's not like you have a family in there. So just remember the more intentional you are with your setup, the better your returns. So looking at this from a wealth building potential, right? And I really want to make sure I hit on the pros and the cons because this strategy, again, like I said, is not for everyone. So let's zoom out. This is much more than just rent checks, right? You're building equity, one. You're reducing your cost of living, two, and you're gaining leverage as well for your next move. So your home is not just a home. Okay, it's a home, it's also a business, and it's a long-term investment. And here's what I love most. You're not having to just solely rely on appreciation. And that's the mistake that so many people make is I'm buying a single family home. Oh, it's going to appreciate over 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, 20 years. But it's not doing anything for you in the meantime. With this strategy, you're generating real income today, or you're offsetting your cost. And like we talked about last week, that savings, say you're banking on a $5,000 mortgage. Okay, well, if it's really only $1,700, that additional, say $3,300 that you're getting in income, you could pay off your mortgage quicker. You can put that $3,300 to work. Buy a ETF, buy a mutual fund, work with your advisor, your financial advisor to put a strategy to work. $3,300 a month can be a huge, huge number if you're consistent with it over 20 years, 30 years, whatever that may look like. So again, you're generating real income today while your asset increases in value over time. Someone else in theory is helping you pay that mortgage. And then of course, go into this another time, but the tax benefits of being a landlord is even better. So let's look at the pros and cons, right? A lot of pros. You're going to offset your mortgage. You're going to have a flexible rental strategy. You're going to take advantage of tax benefits like depreciation. You have a lot more options. You can sell it, you can hold it, you can refinance it, you can leverage that asset. And, I don't know if this is a pro or con, but you kind of learn property management firsthand. Some might say that's more of a con than a pro. So let's get into the cons. Higher upfront cost, right? It's a higher purchase price. It's a more expensive property. I'd say this is probably the biggest con and why sometimes a strategy is not for everyone is the shared space or proximity to who you're renting out to. Now, I've seen some that it is very private. You've added shrubs or gates or fences, so it really is separated. But that is, one thing. If you're, say, going out to your yard, to your backyard, it's very possible that you can see that person. Right? It's very possible if you don't have a setup where it's walled off or it's gated off that you can see those people, you can hear them. So I would say that's probably the biggest con. If you really like privacy, this is probably not the best strategy for you. And I'll be honest, for myself, I know I wouldn't like that. So that's why for me, the strategy wouldn't work for me. But for others who don't care about that, or even more importantly, others that can see past that, people that can see the wealth building potential with this strategy. And it's kind of like last week, how I talked about last week where, new construction, even if your drive time's 10, 15, 20 minutes longer, or it's not the perfect floor plan, or, it's not the perfect backyard size. When you're looking at that and think, okay, well, if I don't care about those things, but I look at, hey, that's $500,000 in accumulated wealth over 20 years. If I go this new build route, I would ask you the same question with regards to shared space or the proximity to those individuals in that unit. If you're looking at, paying down your mortgage and owning the home free and clear in 10 years instead of 30, would that be something you'd be willing to sacrifice? Or, if you're looking at, okay, I have an additional $3,300 in income that I'm not paying on this mortgage, and I can invest that money or I can do something else with it. Would that be a con, or would you be able to live with that? The other thing that could be a con in some markets is local laws for rentals could change. Now, I'm going to talk on the subject of Phoenix. That's where I am. Those are the laws that I know. Since there's no HOA, it's very, very unlikely that any of those laws would come into play. It's possible. It's definitely possible. Things can change. That would be, of course, a con. And then, you become your own landlord. You are working with the tenants. You can always hire that out. You can always hire property management. It's a higher expense, but for most people, they might say, I don't want the proximity and I don't want to be dealing with tenants. So as my kind of final thoughts, action steps, during your search, if you're kind of feeling stuck, if you've been looking at homes and you're just thinking, I can't make these numbers work. I can't justify paying whatever it is over your budget for a single family home. This is the strategy to explore. And I'm actually going to do a episode probably in a few months talking about the ADUs, right? Looking at single family options that have bigger lots and providing some examples of looking at a home with a big lot and the potential to put an ADU on that property and what the income potential can be. What's the break even on if I were to pay $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 for an ADU in the backyard? What's my break even? How many years is it going to take for me to break even? Or what's the income potential? So that's going to be a topic for those that, it's not multifamily. It's not a situation where something like that exists already, but I have a blank slate. I have an empty lot, and I'll walk you through step by step on what that can look like. So I want to kind of say is just try to stop shopping emotionally and stop factoring emotion. I know it's hard. I know it's very hard, but when you look at things with the big picture, like we talked about last week with new construction, obviously today where we're talking about this strategy where it's a huge opportunity to build wealth, look at things strategically. Your dream kitchen, the perfect layout, that won't pay your mortgage. Your tenants will. So if you want to explore any properties that fit this model, whether it's an ADU, a duplex, a guest house, I can help you run the numbers, compare any types of scenarios, build a plan that fits your financial goals. And even if you're going back and forth, you're looking at single family, that has a big lot, that has the potential to build a guest house, an ADU, or if it's multifamily, reach out to me. I'm happy to run through all the different revenue projections, the costs, so you have a clear picture. Now, this is one of the strategies that we're going to talk about, how you build wealth intentionally. And this is one of the ways how you make your home work for you. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the House of Ravenscroft. If you found today's episode helpful, I'd love it if you'd follow the show and share it with someone working toward their own financial or real estate goals. For more insights and resources, you can always connect with me through my website or various social channels. Until next time, here's to building wealth, one decision at a time.